Howdy everyone, welcome back to Doom Productions, home of the No Budget Film School. Today, we're doing a little Filmmaker Hangout where we're talking about the greatest film of the West, Rochas Hombres.
If you've seen the show, if you've seen our channel, you are probably aware that we made two movies. One called Man with a Mustache, and another For a Few Mustaches More. In 2015, I believe March of 2015, we embarked on a journey that took us from March to September of filming a conclusion to this mustache trilogy. A world in which the currency of the Old West is mustaches, where bandits are running wild, where it is a time of lawlessness, and that those who want to fight for peace and justice, they rise up with glorious mustaches to fight for the innocent. And that's what this was. And the way it came about was really just we wanted to make a sequel.
Yeah.
And there were lots of things that we wanted to do in the previous ones that we didn't get to do. That were like, hey, let's do it. Let's get it done. And it also came for I think we had the title first.
Yeah.
Because on the last film, Wyatt improvised a line where he said, "You are a righteous hombre." In For a Few Mustaches More. I think it's at the very, very end of that movie, after the credits. And we were like, Righteous Hombre? What is that movie?
It's a great idea.
And then it was written. Yeah. I think, writing-wise, it's pretty obvious where this is coming from. It's coming from the same place where the other two came from. Spaghetti westerns. There's also a little bit of Monty Python influence in here, but that came from during the filming. And also the movie we talked about.
Yeah.
What's it called? Death to the Tin Man.
Oh, yeah.
This movie has narration, which most spaghetti westerns don't have. But it was something that I think by the time... I hadn't seen that movie before by the time we did the second Mustache movie. But by the time this one, I had seen it and I fell in love with it. And I was like, this is what it's going to be. And I remember sitting everyone down before we started shooting. And I showed everyone, here's Death to the Tin Man and here's Man with the Mustache. And we watched through those two back to the back. Or, For a Few Mustaches More.
Yeah.
So check out Man with the Mustache and For a Few Mustaches More and Death to the Tin Man. And you'll kind of see this is kind of a natural evolution of those. And in many ways where you would think, so this is still into our career. This is 2 years.
Yeah, we are fresh still.
Still fresh. And this is what I think is the culmination of the end of one phase, I should say, of our work.
This is like the end of phase one.
Great
or
American
I guess the golden age of Caramel Shark, I guess we could call it, or something. I don't know.
Exactly. No, because Great American Sleepover should have been, but it wasn't. But this really was like felt like our biggest movie.
Yeah. And everyone from Great American Sleepover, for the most part, was in Righteous Hombres.
First, everyone from our movies before are in this.
That was it. Yeah.
And so, check it out before you move on.
Yeah.
So you can actually learn from this. And also because we think it's still pretty awesome.
It's a great movie.
Still great. This is my binder that I had. Very thick. As I said, it took, I can't count, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. 7 months. Wow.
That's a long time.
For a short film. Wow. We would not be doing that today. Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow.
There's so much we could talk about. Where I want to try to be chronological, but I also want to not be boring by sticking to that. So when you think of production, how did production begin? How did it go? What was it like?
Yeah, production started. It was at a time where we were shooting out of order. Like, we wouldn't shoot chronologically. We would just kind of do. I don't know how we came up with what we decided we were going to shoot first.
Oh, I do.
Okay,
I have it
we'll
right
get into
here.
it. Yeah, because we shot kind of the low point of the movie first. We were kind of all over the place, really, at the end of the day. Production was, fun. Again, we were, like, everyone, I feel like, was on the same page with this project. and it was really cool because we had like a lot of dialogue we were memorizing. We were kind of all, I think, in a groove at this time because we just come off of Great American Sleepover the year before, so we kind of, I don't know, we had this rapport going where it was just really easy. Like, oh, we're making another movie, okay, and we just jumped on in. But yeah, what does the scheduling kind of look like?
So I believe it was divided by the cast.
That makes sense.
So whoever, because there's a lot of actors in this movie, so it was divided on which characters are in scenes together, and let's shoot all their scenes in a day. And if there's like, if 5 of the same people are in a scene in the same day, we'll shoot those 5 scenes. But if these 2 people and then these 3 people are in like different scenes, we'll also try to get that in that day. Okay. So the way I did this, it's probably hard to see, but on this side, I have up top Righteous Hombres, shot list. So I had, I guess it's technically not a shot list, but it's a storyboards. I have the storyboard pages. I have the location, and then I have the shots. So these are the listing out the shots that we did. Now, this is overkill. So much overkill. When you have a storyboard, or at least for me, good. I don't think I had to write out every single shot. But at the same time, some of this is very montagey and around, so that might have been good to do. And I have like, what time of the day, any notes on the scene. And so I have pages and pages of, there's also the cast list in it. There are props. There's locations. It's a mess, but this is a good, I think this is a good example of, yeah, so here's a day, here's one day. I have multiple different setups going on here. This was a great experience to learn how to organize.
I think this is the most like production, like scheduling and getting everything on paper I think we've ever done.
Yeah.
We have the storyboards, you have cards. Everything.
Yeah, and believe it or not, the script went through a couple of phases, and I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember if that was because of logistics or if that was because of, we were just like, hey, this would be better.
This might be getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
The beginning of Righteous Hombres starts off with this montage, but on paper we originally had started it off actually with a completely different opening. Do you know why we changed that? 'Cause I don't. Okay.
I am gonna guess that it's because. Honestly, here's what I would guess.
What was the original beginning?
So, well, let me talk about a little about the vision. Remind me of this,
okay?
Because I want to get back to that.
Okay.
So
let's just go in. Yeah.
The vision for the movie was a blend of Death of the Tin Man and for our kind of mustache movies. It was supposed to, but it was also supposed to be, it's kind of have to be like, what's a good example? This is a bad example, but like an Edgar Wright movie where like you can take Hot Fuzz seriously as a movie, but it's also really, really funny. Same thing with Shaun of the Dead. You can take those stories really, like the story is like solid at the center of it. It's just there happens to be jokes. This story was supposed to be very similar to that, where on a technical level, everything was supposed to be like, oh man, like that is a great movie. It's a great story. And as we shot the movie, there's a lot of technical flaws, many, many technical flaws, some of which adds a charm, but it doesn't. For instance, one thing is like we couldn't always find a lot of people to play extras. It's my family; they're loud. We couldn't find people to play extras here and there. So if you notice, a lot of the people who play the hombres and the people who play like the main cast members, they play multiple different parts. And so it became a lot more like Monty Python, a lot more cartoony and goofy. So I think this right here, there was a campfire coat like beginning and a very end to it that I think that, a mixture of probably being a pain in the butt for scheduling and also finding those people. And also, just like, it didn't fit with what the movie was evolving into.
Yeah.
I would guess that is what happened.
Okay.
Because, this is the first shot of the movie.
Yeah, this part's a lot smaller than I remember. In my head, this was a much bigger opening.
Yeah.
But
well, I'm if you look at the script, I bet it is like at least, look at that.
Oh yeah, it's a huge chunk of dialogue.
You know what? Let's read it. Because let's read this out. This is supposed to be the intro for the movie. Campsite, exterior night. Moon punctures the black sky, wind howls. A stranger, masked in shadows, sits before campfire. And then you can read that. This is what the stranger was supposed to say.
I'm a rider who's seen many things. I'm a wanderer who has stumbled into many myths. But I am, above all, I'm a man who has stories to share. And I have a magnificent story about these woods we camp in now. In a time when the West was open territory. In a time when the blank space covered the map and crime ran the world. This place is not inhabited by men, but by legends. A group of riders that roamed with a mission to rid the land of all evil. These riders disbanded long ago. All that's left of them is tales. But I've heard that if you listen closely in the night, you can hear the whispers of existence. Mustache.
Yeah.
That's a little added.
And then there was a boy who's like, who were they? The stranger smiles. And then that's when the movie starts.
Yeah.
And then it happens. And I'm sure there's other changes that happened. For the most part, I think we stayed fairly true to what happened in the script. The only difference being the end was changed in the beginning. Those little things.
Yeah, because the narrator was going to be the righteous one in the end. That was like the reveal.
Yeah, so what was going to happen and how it was supposed to end was it was going to come back to the campfire, and the two were sitting around the campfire. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, actually, so the movie's end. So remember, after the righteous one defeats Charles, there's a whole thing. Hold up.
Oh, yeah, that's like more of a wrap.
Okay, hold on. So bang, the end of the shootout. I don't know if anyone cares, but I don't care. Well, I want to.
Yeah.
So, defeat Charles, defeat the bad guy. The narrator says the hombres asked the young man if he would continue to fight evil alongside them.
As righteous hombres, it is our duty to spread our justice as far as we can. The old ways only limit the amount of good we can do. I say we part ways. Let us find our own journeys as men of the law. And that was going to tie into... This was the prequel to For a Few Mustaches More, because then my character is on his own. I think that's what our intention was.
Right. You're right.
Yeah. And then Jenkins, my character,
he says,
separate, but the hombres have been around for centuries.
And we will continue to exist. Although we will be separate, we will fight the wicked together. And when it comes time to hang our hats, we will pass our mustaches down so our legacy moves on.
Oh, we were like Jedi.
Yes. So then the hombres go their separate ways, comes back to the campfire with the stranger and the boy. Mm-hmm. And the boy says, and the young man, what happened to him?
Some say he still roams the West, fighting evil when he encounters it. But it was just a legend. Or is just a legend.
And then it looks like people show up.
Yeah, it's like these evil crooks show up and they're like...
Shame. Ugh. Hands up. A group of crooks and criminals appear. They surround the fire. The boy yells. He puts his hand up in the air. The stranger does not.
I said, put him up!
And I say, you walk away before you hurt yourself.
Who do you think you are?
I'm someone you should listen to. Leave us.
I ain't gonna listen to you.
Bang.
Shoots his hat off.
The crook shoots the stranger's hat off to reveal him to be the main character, the righteous one, with a glorious mustache. Everyone gasps.
The mustache!
Then the righteous one would stand, and he goes, big mistake, and then he...
And then cut to credits, probably.
Yeah, cuts to credits.
Yeah.
So that was the original intent, and I have a first draft here. Maybe we'll start like a Patreon, and we can have PDFs of all this stuff.
That would be cool.
For people to look at. But, yeah, so I think those were the biggest changes.
Yeah, I think so.
Everything else was pretty much the same. Like I said, everything was... it was supposed to be kind of epic and cool and like serious and kind of technically tight and like really well done. And it turned out to be a more Monty Python thing where people are playing multiple characters.
Yeah.
Which I think adds to the charm. And it creates a totally different effect. But
it still works. It carries itself. But it wasn't what we intended.
Yeah.
At least when we started out.
And it's a good lesson right there is we actually had a conversation about this recently of when you are into genre films like we are and you're not really into like talking kind of everyday kind of stuff, which if you are, it's cool, like nothing against that, but we love genre, we love horror, sci-fi, westerns, we love all that kind of stuff. So, and when you don't have money to make a movie, it's really, really hard to do that stuff and pull it off. So when you have a movie that's so big in scale and you really want to do it, but you just don't have the resources to pull it off, you can either do two things.
Yeah.
One thing you can do is scale everything back. So, for instance, if you watch For a Few Mustaches More compared to Righteous Hombres, For a Few Mustaches More is so much technically better.
Yeah.
It is a very tight movie. There are flaws, but they're not like over like it's not like right there at the forefront. That's because everything was so scaled down. If you want to do a Western, make it one little scene, make it a simple shootout, make it kind of strip everything down to the bare minimum, and focus on one thing.
Yeah.
Being one scene for A Few Mustaches More. Or, that's option one. Option two is you can do a big epic movie, but just know that it's going to be really goofy and it's going to come across, as kind of campy. And you can lean into that and play as a comedy, which maybe not everyone's into, but that's another option that you have as a filmmaker.
I think a lot of that also comes down to time. If you put the time in, you can make the genre stuff work more. But we were moving as fast as we could, so a lot of these mistakes and errors just kind of show up a lot more because you don't have the time to take as much scrutiny with your work and your shots while you're on set. And that's just a trade-off sometimes. I mean, it's not always the case, but that's kind of how things wound up for us, and I feel like that's kind of the norm.
Yeah, and I think don't be intimidated by changes necessarily.
No.
Some change is good, like, but I totally get that, like wanting to control everything as an artist and all that. The mustache keeps falling off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how filming went. What other filming stuff should we bring up that people can learn from?
I mean, I think this was also kind of a time when we started doing this process of feeding lines. Maybe a little bit earlier we'd gotten it more, but I think we did it a lot in this one where it's like we'd feed each other lines. Like, so it'd be like, Ethan, say this, and I would say my lines. But also, to balance that out, this movie has a ton of long takes in it.
Yeah.
And that was just a time of like, we had to rehearse a lot more. So we'd be on set and we'd be going through our lines. We'd do tons of takes sometimes of just the same little bit over and over again.
Yeah.
And I like that flow for this movie a lot. But that was definitely something different for us because we didn't usually do long takes.
Yeah. And I think that when you're working with your friends, it's not easy to do long takes.
No, because we never expect anyone to have lines memorized when they come on set. It's just we never really had that expectation. Yeah.
So I think, but I think improv really helps that too, because I think there's a bit when the characters of Charles and Nathaniel, played by May and Ace, they're arguing, and the two of them, I mean, I'm sure it was scripted out, but I think they improvised that.
I think they did too.
I think that was all improvised. So, and it works really well.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
It's like, it felt really natural because, I can write something one way, but that might not necessarily be natural to the way May will say it. So it might sound more natural if they say it in a different cadence or a different way to make it flow a little bit easier, and lean into that. Don't if you want actors to, do it just how it's written in the script, hire actors, not your friends.
Yeah.
When you're working with amateur actors or your friends, lean into their personalities and lean into their strengths. Don't try to fit them into a box. Now, some of your friends might be really into being completely different and putting on a character, and that's cool too. But I'm saying it's a strength you have as someone with no money, as a no budget filmmaker, to lean into your friends' personalities.
And the more they get to play around with, I feel like we've had the great experience of the more we let them do that, they want to come back more because they get to, the character belongs to them and the movies are just as much theirs as it is ours.
Yeah.
So they get to have so much more fun with it. That's like when we ask them, hey, do you want to be in a movie again? They're always excited to come back.
Yeah.
Like we've never really had issues of actors not wanting to be in another project with us. It's so great.
Yeah. So let's get into, I'm sure more stories will come up, production stories.
Yeah.
But let's get into the pros and cons of the movie itself. So what is a pro of the movie Righteous Hombres?
I mean, I think the charm is the biggest strength that it has. It covers up like 90% of the flaws.
Yeah.
Is just the fact that it has like that cobbled together, I don't want to say high school feel to it, but it has like that student film vibe where like, I don't know, like nothing really works in the sense of like, oh, all the... Are you getting another phone call?
I'm gonna silence that one.
What was I saying? Like, you know, everyone's wrong. Like, the costumes don't make sense, really.
Mm-hmm.
The locations are, like, very obviously not the Old West.
Yeah.
But everything that's going on, you buy into it still.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the charm is what kind of gives it that. I don't know. And
Yeah.
the story, like, kind of helps too. But I won't make the story part of my pro.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say the charm.
I would say we're going pros.
Mm-hmm.
I think on a technical level, editing wise,
mm-hmm.
I think the cutting itself is good.
Yeah.
I think, yes, I'll say that I have other problems with the editing, but I think overall the pacing of the editing, the shots
mm-hmm.
that were chosen, the movement within it, the composition, that stuff all works for me. Just so I come back, let's say right now, the coloring I'm not a huge fan of, and the sound, every movie we do up until probably like October, oh brother, I'm gonna be like, the sound sucks. But it's true, yeah, the sound is not good.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you look at the scene look at most of the scene of the movie, like where people are talking, it sounds pretty bad. But if you look at the confrontation between Charles and Papa Hobbs, when Charles shoots Papa Hobbs, down, and it's like part of that whole scene after the Righteous One has gone away, the dialogue between them sounds good because it was dubbed.
Yeah.
And so it's a good example of like, hey, go that extra mile and it'll sound that much better.
And the dubbing isn't even that great. I mean, it lines up. We didn't even have the reference in front of.
No.
I know at least Travis. Like, it was like, hey Travis, say these lines.
Mm-hmm.
We just put them in, and we as good as you can, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it leans into the Western genre trope where they were, the spaghetti westerns where they're dubbing Italian actors, and it doesn't line up anyways. You can get away with that within the genre, but
that was one of the jokes too, is because my character, whenever you watch a spaghetti western, there's always like the bandits. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody was dubbed in those Italian movies because they didn't record sound, mm-hmm. but with those bad guys, they would always dub them in with these horrible semi-Italian, semi-Mexican accents. And so you would have these people, all the bands would have this weird kind of voiceover voice, and which is what we were going for with my character.
Yeah.
And that was intentional. And I think dubbing plays into the whole spaghetti western thing, like you were saying anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
But it does help.
Yeah.
Which is the sound.
But pro-wise, I think, though, the editing minus the sound and minus the color worked really well. What's another pro?
Right place, right time. For a lot of the locations, we showed up, and I don't know, it wasn't really planned,
mm-hmm.
but I think it kind of shows like how much being at the right place at the right time can make your movie look that much better. Because a lot of the sunset duels look fantastic,
mm-hmm.
just because we were there at sunset. So I think for a no-budget filmmaker, that should be like, okay, when's the best time to go to this location? When's it going to look its best? Because I feel like we just kind of show up when people are free or when it's like the easiest, and we just kind of go with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you should, for a lot of your projects, like, know what it's going to look like when you're going to show up. So if you're like, I'm going to film here at 5 p.m., go there at 5 p.m. and make sure that's going to look good. Mm-hmm. And then if it's like, oh, this isn't going to pan out for what I want at all, it's going to be too dark or too light, then, to change time. And we stumbled into a lot of it, though. Like, all these sunsets we filmed at, including one that's in black and white, which is just a shame. But they look great, and we were just there at sunset. Mm-hmm. So just, research your locations before you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think another pro is the performances are all... I really like all the performances
mm-hmm.
In the movie. Now, of course, it's a really cartoony movie, so it's clearly all just, I think we were just out of high school, actually. So, like, college. Yeah. It's a bunch of young people goofing around. But it works for the style.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the performance-wise, everything's, like, there. There's a couple of directing things I would have done differently. But that's it's not relevant to
you pulled it off.
Yeah. What's another pro?
We're not out. I'm just how to think. I wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah.
Is this a pro? I'm gonna make it a pro.
Okay.
You know what? This is a pro. Recasting people into their same roles from previous projects. If you like keep up with the continuity of the Caramel Shark universe,
Yeah.
this movie is like 10 times better for you.
Yeah.
Because we bring in characters from other projects, but they're the same characters. And we kind of do this, especially with the Hobbs name.
Mm-hmm.
That name comes up throughout a lot of our work because we like to have this image of like the Papa Hobbs lineage throughout time weaving through our movies.
Yeah.
So if you're like, I think just like, yeah, the pro of we weaved it into our continuity.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's such a weird pro. Take that what you will.
Inside jokes. I think that's
inside jokes. That's better. Inside jokes.
Inside jokes. There's a lot of inside jokes. Like if you watch all our big movies, so like, what was it? Rendezvous Midnight, the Zombie one,
all the westerns,
Great American Sleepover. This. Everybody who's in those other movies, they're in this, and there's like even like Jacob. I mean, that's just fun to see. Like even, and they're so like having Jacob play Pythagoras of the town. Like that's such a great little Easter egg if you've seen Great American Sleepover. If you haven't seen it, it's fine.
Yeah,
like it doesn't matter, but it gives it that extra level of meaning, which is also it's a pro and it's a con because if you do it too much, you run the risk of no outsiders being able to understand it.
Yeah.
But
we didn't fall into that, luckily.
Not here, yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly not here. I think another pro is definitely, which is kind of, I really like the music choices.
Oh yeah,
I liked. Now it's all licensed music that we didn't license. It's all we don't own it. We stole it. But I really like, if you're going to do that, you have complete control over like your score pretty much.
Yeah.
So what I would say, which is something I do, is I use certain soundtracks as like themes for characters. So there's the first track you hear, the very first track you hear, you also hear it at when the mustache grows, when the Righteous One grows the mustache. So you hear it then too, but it's kind of a revamped version. So, and then we also hear at the very end when it's kind of the closing montage. So start thinking about, if you're going to take a bunch of soundtracks, start taking, for your movies, think about it as themes that you can borrow and use.
Yeah.
And like, how do I use that? What does it mean? Here's the opening theme. What does it mean when I play that over this sad montage? What does that mean when I play it over this happy montage? What does it mean if I use this different version of it? These are things that composers think about, but there's something that you can be thinking about too as a filmmaker and as an editor. But there's another theme that is used in the movie. It's from one of the Ringo movies. There's an old spaghetti western series, The Pistol for Ringo and Return of Ringo. I used the theme from The Return of Ringo a couple times throughout as kind of like, it's used when the Righteous One leaves home for the first time, and it's used during the sad kind of montage when the mustache is gone. And so, yeah, just like notice musical cues and how you can use them to shape your story. And I didn't own any of this stuff. I stole it from movies and bands and whatnot. My thing's gonna come off.
Yeah, it's like
that's about how long that these mustaches lasted.
I've got good practice. I can make mine last a long time.
Yeah, but yes. So I like the way the music is used in the movie. Maybe that's not a pro for everyone, but for me, I enjoy it. What's another pro for you?
Getting creative with like your camera movement and how you use your camera. I think one of my favorite things we've done in this was we were trying everything. Like we had the camera running, we had the camera like we were doing zooms. We had one of my favorite little editing tricks. We would have like our widest lens. We'd zoom in as tight as we could, and then we'd take it off and then put on our telephoto lens and zoom again, and then we'd cut the two together and you get like this super crazy zoom. So we were just experimenting left and right. Like there was nothing that we weren't trying during this project. Like it was the culmination of all the projects that came before it. We were putting everything we could into it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Were you done with that pro?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. The end shootout.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's a pro, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
builds so well.
There's lots of good stuff within here, I think, but that is a standout sequence.
We reference it in our work
Still.
now all the time.
Yeah.
Or at least we try to. Like, yeah. And we still haven't, I don't think we've surpassed it yet. And we'll actually, Righteous Hombres is such a staple of our cinematography that when Jordan and I are on set today, we'll say, do the Hombres shot.
Yeah.
And that means different things at different times, but it's always we're referencing back to Hombres.
Yeah.
Because that could mean like a hip shot, that could mean like a feet tracking shot or whatever, but it's always an Hombres shot.
Yeah. In our sci-fi short that we're going to release hopefully
soon.
In July, hopefully.
Yeah.
You will see a lot of similarities. So, yeah, that's a great sequence. I think we go on and on about kind of
what's great.
The pros, but I think let's get into the cons, I think.
I agree. Okay. You covered already.
Actually, hold on, one pro really quick.
Okay, yes.
Only cost $88.
That is a pro if I've ever heard one.
It cost us $88. I'm guessing some of the stuff is props, but it's mostly
probably food.
Look at that.
Dollar store
popcorn,
food. Yeah.
Safety pins, couple safety pins.
So much dollar
Swiss
store.
rolls.
Freddy's.
I don't know what that was. It doesn't say. Deli platter. Oh,
shit. It's food.
This is all just food for the cast and crew.
Yeah.
So as we said, if you're gonna spend money on a movie, just spend it on food.
Yeah, we already had the gun. Like we bought 2 more guns for this movie, but we had the 2 from the last ones.
Yeah.
We were set.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's great.
Oh, $88. It's how much it cost us. Okay. Cons.
Cons. I mean, you already covered color grading. That's one I would have said is inconsistent color grading.
Mm-hmm.
I think a con would be some days, and this is so complicated and kind of gets into like, I don't know if I could even call this a con. It's just how things were and how we were scheduling things. But I wish we had more time on shots. Oh. And I know this thing, like, this was just how it was. If I were to do it again, though, I would cut our days maybe in half and let us take more time to like shoot things well. And I think again this might have come from inexperience. I think a whole bunch of things factor into the fact that while there are a lot of great shots in this movie, there's just as many shots. I'm like, if I had taken 2 more minutes or a couple more minutes, we could have framed out that porta potty, or we could have gotten those cars out of the shot, or things like that take away from the realism of the movie. So I would say just allowing a little bit more time. But
I already covered sound, but that's a negative for me. But I think I'll also kind of echo it, but it's kind of different. Is the realism, the Monty Python thing? Like when I look back at it, I absolutely can overlook the flaws, but I really, really wish that on a technical level, like you could tell that like it wasn't Monty Python. I really wish all these different characters were played by different people. I wish that our costumes were better. I wish you couldn't see porta potties in the back. I wish you didn't see cars. I really wish this looked and felt like a real Western and not like kids goofing off. And, again, you might like the charm and you might prefer it. But for me, that wasn't the vision for the movie.
Totally.
So I really don't like that stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's like, those are sneakers. Oh, that's... safety pins, telephone pole, like building, like there's so much that like, and that's in every frame almost.
Yeah,
that's in a lot of the movie.
Roads, just very modern roads.
So I'm really not a huge fan of that. So for me, and again, like Ethan said, that could have been avoided by just taking extra time to frame stuff out, or taking the time to get people. I think at this point we still didn't know how to get people in our movies, other than just ask your friends.
We really did max out, I think, our available people in this movie.
So next, if you need lots of people, go to Craigslist, go to Backstage, go to Facebook. I'm sure there's other filmmaking forums out there, but just message, like post
Find
out there.
Local acting Facebook groups and stuff.
Go to colleges and put up bulletin boards. Go to coffee shops and put up bulletin boards. Like do all that stuff to find more actors and people to be in your movie.
And don't do just one, do multiple, because you're always going to come up with less people than you would hope.
Yeah.
So don't just do one of those things, do all of those.
So definitely, that's, I can't remember what you were saying about.
I mean,
that really...
take time, but
take time. Yeah, so take the time to do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's something that I think is a huge detriment to the movie. As fun as the story is, I'm not a huge fan of that kind of campy
Mm-hmm.
kind of. Well, it is inherently campy, but I'm not a fan of like. I wish it was like campy in the way that Blazing Saddles or like one of those old kind of comedies were, where it's like, oh, that's clearly a Western, but
Yeah.
there's some other. And when a car does appear, you're like, oh, that's the joke, is that it's a modern thing that suddenly appears.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. This isn't quite an ADRing thing, but it's kind of an ADR thing. I wish we ADR'd not just for general good sound, but I know there are several times where I'm watching this and I'm like, oh man, I flubbed that line, or I like stutter, and I think there's that in all of it just because we're still getting used to acting, and it's just like that was just the best take. We chose up based on performance, not necessarily just on the little mistakes, and we still kind of do that, but yeah, just like we could have polished up some of the performances, I think, with re-recording lines.
Yeah.
Because like the performances in our face or the framing, that was all great, but it just like, oh, that line is kind of not as great as it could have been, and that kind of sometimes takes me out.
Yeah.
And also, I just thought of one other one. Camera like push-ins. I wish we'd done them digitally, because we have a lot of zoom-ins on like people's faces are like just slow, like while the narrator's going, and you can tell my lens is really stuck, and so you'll start going, all of a sudden it'll go and it'll kind of totally takes you out of the moment. Yeah. So I wish that we had just left those to be digital push-ins in post, and then the big zooms, those we did optically. Yeah. Like we did, because those look fine.
Yeah. I think another con is story-wise. I think there's some things that don't quite sync up for me. I mean, I like about like, I would say like 80% of the story, and that's what makes those flaws so much bigger. So for instance, the Charles's kind of betrayal and everything, I wish there was kind of more build up to that. I wish there was also what is it? There's another thing that stood out like a sore thumb to me. I think it had to do with the whole plan too was very just, there wasn't like, it's fine and it makes sense, but there's some kind of inconsistencies in there.
The plans of how the Hobbs took over, or how Nathan took over, I mean. Or not, no.
Charles,
sorry.
I think there's just that whole kind of sequence, which I think it's a fun sequence, but in the overall whole of everything, I just wish there was kind of more flow and pacing to everything. Because I think on a story level, let me just think of another example. The mythology of the mustache, actually, that's another one. It doesn't all quite make sense. Like, it feels like, not retconny, not that that's the right word, but when the mustache is gone, your character's like, you'll just have to grow a new one, and that'll be, which seems to negate the prophecy, if there even is one. And we never go into the prophecy, so I think mythology-wise, it could have been tightened up a little bit. That didn't quite make sense. I mean, I think, structurally it's all there, but it's in the details, which is where I'm not a huge fan of some of the stuff in here. Yeah. What else? More cons.
I can't really think of any others. I think those last two kind of...
Those are the big ones?
Those are the big ones for me. And what you covered is great.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because everything else, like, I mean, we obviously still, with all these cons, love this movie to death.
Yeah.
Like, we were talking, like, we were talking while we were watching it. So we watched it before these, and we were like, should we remake this? I want to remake this. It's like, I don't know if we could redo it just right and capture all of it. It's like, how would we do this? We were just talking about it. So it's like, this is one of our favorite things we've made. We'll always kind of talk back about this one and just like bring it up. And it's so good.
I think that, as it's funny watching old stuff because you're always thinking, oh, I could do so much better now. So that's what Righteous Hombres is to us and to me, I think. It's like, oh, I could do it so much better now. But like, should you? And that's kind of the whole question.
Well, what's great is like, if we were to do this, this would not take us 7 months if we wanted to do it again.
No.
Which is very nice to think about, because, that 7 months, that's a long time. Oh my gosh. But, yeah. Sometimes they just be like that.
Yeah, sometimes. I'm trying to think of another... I think another con... Well, this could be a con.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend... Wyatt's... it's not really a con. I guess. The acting... No.
Wyatt is just a con.
No. Wyatt is not a con.
Wyatt, we love you.
There's a couple of parts where, like, the mayor or the old man Leone, they're played by, just our friends, which could be a con. So if I were to do this again, I'd probably not have Wyatt play that role, probably not have Jacob play that role, because they're obviously not old men. So
that would have been a great Richard role.
Yeah.
Who wasn't acting with us at the time.
Well, also another con, I think, is our friend Tim. His beard is real, and his thing is real, which kind of breaks the mythology again.
Luckily, it's a short bit and not
a
recurring character. Then that would be an issue.
It would make a lot more sense if, that's not like...
It would have been fun if we just replaced his upper lip.
Yeah.
We went full Justice League on him.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been, been funny.
Yeah.
Effects-wise, some of the split-screen stuff is wonky, but we've improved.
We've got a lot better. Though one of the bad split screens in there is not actually a bad split screen. There's a weird shadow.
Oh, yes.
And that is not our fault. There's a building there.
Yes.
And so it casts this shadow.
Yes.
That wasn't us.
It's right before Papa Hobbs is going to be introduced. And the narrator or the priest is standing before the grave, and there's these people, like, grieving. In it, you'll see a shadow stick out towards the middle and then stop. There is a building right there, and that is where the shadow naturally ended. So everything about that...
It looks like bad masking, but I swear it's not.
It's not. If you want to look for the bad masking part, it's in the tombstone. There's a weird kind of...
The color temperature is a little weird.
There's a weird coloring there with the gravestone. So that's where the artifact is. It's not in the shadow. The shadow is actually how it really looked in real life.
Setting the record straight.
Yeah, we just got to defend that one part. Everything else,
Yeah, tear that apart.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what should people learn from this movie?
I mean, everything we just said. I don't... I mean, take time. But, don't stretch things out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that weird oxymoronic kind of a piece of advice of, take your time, but don't take your time. And don't... know what you're going for and really strive for that. Because we were striving for this really realistic, immersive movie that just happened to be a comedy, like you said, like Hot Fuzz. And it ended up being more of a Monty Python thing just because we didn't... I don't know. It's kind of like you're blind to it at the time where you're you don't see these certain details that you should be paying a lot of attention to. And I feel like we're a lot better at that now.
Yeah.
I don't think if we were to make another Western, we would let someone be wearing tennis shoes and shorts on set.
No.
That just wouldn't happen. You would go out and get them the right kind of clothes that at least somewhat fit that era. That's something you just kind of develop, I think, over time as a filmmaker, that kind of eye for what fits and what doesn't. It just... And sometimes, again, you'll get lucky, Rendezvous Midnight. We fit the part. Sure, we're not old enough, I don't feel like, but, nothing about our look.
The costuming.
The costuming, I mean, is wrong or takes you out of it. That fits, and that's great. And so it's kind of again, knowing what you can get away with. Is it easier for you to shoot a cop movie than it is to shoot a full-on Western?
Yeah.
If yes, then...
Maybe set your Western in the modern era and have it set with cops and robbers and stuff like that.
And that totally works. It just depends on how you want to do it and frame it. And that's a skill that's a big muscle to develop in filmmaking. And you're going to mess up a lot of times before you get it. But the more you're trying it, I think the more you can... The quicker you can get to that point where you can create a really well fleshed out world. And that's just going to make your movies even better. So...
Yeah.
So try things and
be
okay with messing up, but just know it's going to build up to something.
And at the same time, another thing I think you can learn from this is we're telling you to kind of think about realistically what you can do, but also that sense of like ignorance is so wonderful when you're starting out. Like, shoot for the moon.
Yeah.
Like, shoot for the stars, shoot for the other planets out there. And like, you know, you might fail. You probably will fail. And that's totally fine. But you're going to learn a whole lot. Yeah. And you're going to make something really kind of special and hopefully charming and just fun to watch. I mean, this movie, like, if we had sat down and thought, here's this movie we want to make. Do we know the people who could fill these roles? No? Okay, so we just won't do it.
Yeah.
Then the movie never would have been made.
Yeah.
So to a certain extent, you need to have that drive. You have to have, what is it? You have, I think this is a Jodorowsky quote or some great filmmaker said, like, you have to have, you should have, your ambition as a director should be, you want to change the world. Now that's a huge ambition. Maybe not making a goofy Western will change the world, but you as a director, you should strive towards absolute kind of like, let's push ourselves and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to have. And there's several movies, all the feature films we've made that in the past year, all the shorts we've made even in the past, couple of years, there was something about each one of them that pushed us in new ways. So jumping ahead, Oh Brother, I was like, I don't know if I can carry a whole movie with me playing both characters and technically pull it off and all that kind of stuff. With House, you were like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm just going to shoot the opening scene and send it off and see what Jordan thinks.
Yeah.
With October, there was so many visual effects stuff where we're like...
And we don't do visual effects.
No. We were like, I don't know how... We started that movie without having a plan of how we were going to do the giant pumpkin monster. Yeah. Let that sink in. We started the movie where the big climax is the big pumpkin monster and pumpkin shooting into it. Well, actually, that wasn't in the climax then.
No, that wasn't.
It was a different climax. We started the movie knowing we were going to have a big pumpkin monster, and we had no idea how we were going to do that big pumpkin monster.
And we had decided on a pumpkin monster a couple days before shooting, because originally it was going to be a completely different monster in the end. And we were like, wouldn't it be great if it was a pumpkin? And we just said, yeah, and we went with it.
Because we knew that it would push us, but we knew that even if we failed, it would fit in the appropriate amount of campiness that was right for October. So in every single project we've done, we have pushed ourselves in little areas. I think Righteous Hombres definitely pushed us in many areas. So as you grow as a filmmaker and as you get better, it's good to like maybe push yourself in like with like one thing, and that way you're not kind of spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah.
But I think that's what that's definitely a good thing to be aware of.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's great.
Try to be aware of what you can get away with, but also have ambition. Try to make an amazing Western. Yeah. There was a YouTube movie I saw. Let me hold on.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I did see a Western.
Oh, okay. I don't know what you're talking about.
It was a YouTube Western movie, and I was really, really impressed. And hey, they pulled it off a lot on a technical level. They pulled it off a lot better than we did on Righteous Hombres.
Good for them.
I swear I'm going to get the name of this movie. We'll cut this up. I know where it is. Where I can find it. Here it is. Okay. It's going to take me to YouTube. It's called Legend of Chuchara by The Goog. Goog. They got 148 subscribers. And it's got about 1,000 views or so, and it's 48 minutes. But on a technical level, like, it looks like a real Western.
That looks great.
And this was a high school movie too, so they were younger than we were when we did Righteous Hombres.
Dang.
And yeah, so,
send me a link later.
Yeah. So have ambition, because you might pull it off. Maybe you won't, and maybe those guys, they like, yeah, we have all the stuff, we know we can pull it off. So, but I don't know, yeah.
That's awesome.
Learn about making movies.
And make movies.
Yeah.
That's the best. That's the best film school you'll ever find.
Yep.
Make a movie.
Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Filmmaker Hangout.
Yeah.
The next one we'll do is probably... Oh, what's the next movie after this?
Let me take a look here.
We don't actually know. We kind of memorized the catalog prior to...
Now it's like, yeah. Once we come out of this era, like, I forget.
Gets a little foggy. Do you have a movie in here?
Not yet. We got Serious Business.
Serious Business. So check out Serious Business. That one's also
movie.
really fun.
Yeah, Serious Business.
That one
to YouTube near you.
Yeah. So check that one out.
Uh-huh.
Stay tuned. If you like this video, hit like, subscribe, all that stuff.
Before you do that, I've fooled you all. This isn't really my mustache. Subscribe.
Yeah.
Like the video.
Like it, subscribe it, share it.
Yeah.
Hit that bell notification. There's
Yeah.
going to be some real fun stuff coming soon, so
Yeah.
stay tuned.